Installing a stiffer front sway bar is a common mod for people autocrossing 1994 to 2004 Mustangs. Several aftermarket companies offer front sway bars for our cars. Sway bars help you fine-tune your suspension setup, but not every autocross Mustang will benefit from a stiffer front sway bar. And, as you'll see in this pair of videos, not all 35mm front sway bars are the same. Part 1 covers the benefits of a stiffer front sway bar, provides tips for choosing a stiffer front sway bar, details the features of the Steeda 1994 to 2004 Mustang 35mm front sway bar, and shares my honest, autocross-tested review of its quality, performance, and durability. In Part 2, I'll review the Eibach 35mm front sway bar I use on my 2004 V6. This is not a paid promotion. I've used a Steeda 555-1094 35mm front sway bar on my 2000 GT at well over 100 autocross events. My 2000 GT started out with a solid rear axle using an OEM rear sway bar along with a Steeda adjustable rear sway bar. It currently has a Cobra independent rear suspension with an OEM rear sway bar. At first, I used the Steeda 35mm front sway bar with Steeda aluminum sway bar brackets, Prothane sway bar end links with polyurethane bushings, and polyurethane pivot bushings. I switched to Steeda Delrin sway bar pivot bushings in 2018. A stiffer front sway bar reduces body roll, improves steering feel, and, along with the right suspension mods, improves handling balance. It helps keep the car level in corners and reduces oversteer. 1994 to 2004 Mustangs came from the factory with a tendency to understeer at the limit of traction. If the only mod you make to your suspension is a stiffer front sway bar, the tendency to understeer will be worse. Aftermarket sway bar stiffness information can be hard to find. You don't see a lot of advertisements that say, "Our front sway bar is 20% stiffer than one from brand X." That means fine-tuning your autocross suspension with a front sway bar might require experimenting with more than one brand. Remember, front and rear sway bars work together, and sway bars work with your other suspension components as part of a system. Your alignment specs, spring rates and ride height, strut and shock settings, and ideal air pressure all factor into your front sway bar choice. And upgrading your sway bar pivot and end link bushings and your sway bar mounts will impact the effectiveness of your front sway bar. People tend to think any amount of body roll is bad, but a little body roll is actually a good thing, as long as it's composed and controlled. Installing a stiffer front sway bar is always the last suspension mod I make to my autocross cars. A stiffer front sway bar will add understeer. That can be a positive or a negative depending on your other mods and your suspension adjustments. I have enough adjustability in my other suspension components to compensate for the added understeer. The Steeda 35mm front sway bar is made from tubular steel. It features billet steel end caps that are intended to reduce deflection. The Steeda 35mm front sway bar has collars that sit against the pivot bushings to restrict the sway bar from moving side to side during hard cornering. Not all aftermarket sway bars have collars and billet steel end caps. The Steeda sway bar comes with polyurethane pivot bushings and lube. The Steeda sway bar on my 2000 GT came in a silver powder coat finish. The current version comes in a gloss gray powder coat. The Steeda 35mm front sway bar weighs 11.1 pounds. Installation instructions are available on Steeda's website. It took me 1.5 hours to install the Steeda front sway bar on my 2000 GT. In the product description on their website, Steeda lists how much stiffer their 35mm front sway bar is compared to OEM front sway bars. For example, the Steeda front sway bar is 150% stiffer than an OEM Ford 27mm front sway bar. Not all companies provide information about how stiff their sway bars are compared to OEM sway bars. So what do I think of the Steeda 35mm front sway bar after well over 500 autocross runs? The Steeda front sway bar is clearly a well-built part. The bends and ends look precisely made. It comes with quality polyurethane pivot bushings. For the most part, the powder coat looks great. But as you can see, this brand new, never installed Steeda sway bar has some small chips in the powder coat where the end links mount. The Steeda 35mm front sway bar on my 2000 GT has been torture tested by technical elements, short and long slaloms, widely offset cones, and super fast sweepers. The Steeda sway bar greatly reduces but doesn't completely eliminate body roll. With the Steeda sway bar, the front of my car feels consistent and confident in the corners and during rapid changes of direction. Because it works well with my other mods and adjustments, the car feels balanced and predictable. When I have to attack really tight elements at smaller sites, like the fairgrounds, the Coliseum parking lot, and the oval track infield, I do need to soften my front struts from 2 to 1 to prevent a slight tendency to understeer in those elements. A quality aftermarket sway bar is built to hold up over time, but any defects in the material, design, or that happen during the manufacturing process could cause a premature failure. After hundreds of autocross runs, the Steeda 35mm front sway bar on my 2000 GT hasn't bent or broken, and it performs just as well as the day I installed it. When I took the original polyurethane bushings out to replace them with Delrin bushings, they looked better than I expected. These bushings have taken a lot of abuse. There are some issues with the silver powder coat. It's flaking off of both end caps. Based on my experience, I have no doubt that this sway bar will continue to help me carve corners for years to come. The Steeda 1994 to 2004 Mustang 35mm front sway bar is a quality product with features many aftermarket sway bars don't offer. It reduces body roll, helps you fine-tune your suspension setup, and it performs extremely well under autocross conditions. If a stiffer front sway bar is the right mod for your SN95 Mustang autocross car, the Steeda 35mm front sway bar is a great choice. But there are other options. In part 2, I'll share my autocross-tested review of the Eibach 1994 to 2004 Mustang 35mm front sway bar.